Hello, welcome. Welcome to Finding Your HR Advocacy Voice podcast. My name is Tracy Justice, and I am here with Chris Schrader. How are you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing fine, Tracy. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Now, the last time we were here, actually, I'm always about to forget about the disclaimer, but I definitely want to make sure I share that. Because Chris and we are definitely doing this to bring awareness. You know what? Here's a funny thing. Okay. So this is kind of changed, and I got to get used to moving things around. Okay, here it goes. This podcast is provided for community building, educational purposes, and public policy awareness. We are not legal. We are not in the legal business. We don't provide advice. We provide an opportunity to bring awareness to what is going on in the legal, what's happening nationally, locally, and at the state level. And so this is just an opportunity to share and hopefully find your advocacy voice. Yes. Okay. So then, Chris, so the last time we spoke, it was like in November, and we were just trying to process, Trump had won the administration. Right. Yeah. He won. Yeah. And then we were processing all of his cabinet picks. And so I definitely want to be able to talk about that, because I think we've had a lot more time to process that. But before
he's quite frankly come out with more cabinet picks.
Yes.
And that really, what really has stood out to me in this upcoming term for President Trump, as compared to his last one, right?
Mm-hmm.
He is so much farther ahead. All these cabinet picks, I mean, they've been coming out fast and furious, and obviously it goes without saying that he's going to expect the Senate to pretty much give him what he wants. We'll talk about this in a little bit more. He compared to last time it took him, he never got the government staffed. As a matter of fact, last time never got staffed, primarily because he did not, the Republicans did not control the Senate in his, they did, but barely. That's it. They did, but barely. I apologize. It just took forever, to get names out, to get hearings scheduled. I mean, he was into June and had much of the government unstaffed, right? So that's not the case this time. They're coming fast and furious. So.
Yeah, they really are. Because I looked it up, and I guess, there's a lot more names that aren't really being talked about. So they're just key people that maybe are a bit controversial. Those are the only ones that I've been hearing about. But then when I pulled it up, I realized there's a lot more people.
Oh, there's a lot of people that know what they're talking about. And the reason being is that they're not controversial.
Yes.
Yeah. If you were to read about it in the news, you would assume that the whole thing is a mess, when in reality, he's got like 42 positions proposed, and yet nobody knows who these people are because they're not being talked about. But we'll talk about them. But
yes.
So what? Actually, before we do this, you had mentioned just before we came on, that we're still trying to get. So before we start talking about the new Congress and the new administration, there's actually some number of weeks here still left in the current administration, and most importantly, in the current Congress.
Yes.
So we still have a few working days left in Congress, and SHRM sent out an alert asking members of the A team, the advocacy team, to contact their representative and their senators, particularly on getting WIOA reauthorized. Right?
Yes.
So the reason this happened is because we're out of time. Now, in a couple of our podcasts over the course of this year, I have consistently talked about two pieces of legislation I was working, the workforce bill and the WIOA reauthorization, that were in two separate bills.
Yes.
Those bills passed the House and they went into the Senate. But they got out of committee, but they never got to the floor in time, right? Because the election got in the way, there weren't enough working days, and so here we are. And so the reason that SHRM was talking specifically about WIOA is that there is still a spending resolution bill that needs to be passed before the end of the year for funding.
Okay.
And so what SHRM is trying to do is get the WIOA reauthorization attached to that piece of legislation. Okay.
Okay.
Now,
okay.
anytime there is a must-pass bill, right? So this has been the spending resolutions, right? Because we haven't done a budget in forever. So we just do these spending resolutions, right? Authorizing the government to spend and then authorizing the Treasury to print more money and raise the money, right?
Okay.
So we've been doing that. And so as a result, because it's been hard to get legislation passed through normally, any bill that has to move. So the bills that have to move every 2 years are the defense bill, the transportation bill, the agriculture bill, and any of the 4 or 5 spending resolutions that are passed, right?
Okay.
Any must-pass piece of legislation turns into, and this time of the year, aptly named, a Christmas tree.
Okay.
And
yes.
so, everybody who's been trying to get their stuff passed and couldn't, either because it didn't get out of committee or didn't get to the floor in time, or got to the floor but didn't get voted on, or whatever, they want to lift their piece out of that larger piece of legislation and hang it on this other piece of legislation that has to move. Hence the term Christmas tree.
Yes.
So it is never that. And so anytime and usually it's the Republicans who say this, where you will hear them say, we want a clean spending bill. You ever heard that? We want a clean bill. Okay, so when they mean a clean bill, that means they don't want this thing to turn into a Christmas tree. So don't come to me and want to put a whole bunch of other stuff on this. It has nothing to do with the bill. Right? I don't want that. I want it to be clean. I want everybody to vote on just this stuff. And if we had legislation moving through regular order normally, that wouldn't be a problem, but we haven't had that in a long time. And so as a result, anything that has to move becomes a Christmas tree. So SHRM is asking us to put an ornament on this spending resolution tree that is WIOA.
Okay.
Because that bill that WIOA sits in is a much larger bill that has to do with a lot more stuff than just WIOA.
Okay, but so right now, just that piece of that bill is the
reason that SHRM is trying to do this is because the WIOA spending authorization turns into a pumpkin and dies at the end of 2025 or 2024 unless it is reauthorized. Wait
a minute. Did you say at the end of 2024?
I'm sorry, 2024. Yeah, at the end of 24.
Okay, so
because this is a new Congress, right? We started new Congress in 2025.
Yes.
So 2025 and 2026 is a new Congress.
Okay, so that's why.
So the in the last iteration of WIOA reauthorization, they reauthorized it for a period of time that sunset at the end of 2024. So this is very, very common for pieces of legislation in Congress. They don't want to codify it, and so they go, okay, well, we're going to try it and we're going to see, and so we're going to give it 4 years, and at the end of 4 years, it's going to die. So that means it's either got to be reauthorized as it is, or it has to be codified in a piece of legislation. So what SHRM was trying to do is codify it in a piece of legislation. That's what we've been trying to do for the last 2 years. And we almost got it to the finish line and we just ran out of time.
So how does that, like, what is that something we should be concerned with as HR professionals, or, you know, or even business owners that are utilizing that?
Because if that spending authorization dies, then that means the federal government doesn't have the money to send to Indiana for any merited programs that it runs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the practical implication. Now, the other thing that could happen is that Congress could show up in January and go, wow, we dropped the ball on that one, and lickety split ram something through. They could.
Okay.
They could, but
Okay.
and so there would be a hiccup, right? Indiana wouldn't have that money for some period of time.
Oh, okay. So then there would be, there would be some people that would experience some impact due to it not being completed by the last.
Yeah. And
Wow,
Indiana knows this. Indiana knows what's happening. And so my guess would be they've probably notified an awful lot of people or organizations, whoever it was they were working with on these programs in Indiana, to say, hey, heads up, the dollars might not be there in 26. So
okay.
We're waiting on the authorization. So.
And then part of that advocacy alert that went out was the telehealth expansion act.
That was also on so that's another Christmas tree ornament. So that was another bill that didn't get voted on before we ran out of time. So.
Okay. So for all of you out there that if you're connected with the SHRM's 18, you would have received that. That's a little bit of context, a little bit more context to go behind that. But if you have not received that and you want to receive that, you can definitely text the 18 to 52886.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. Thanks for putting that up there. Yeah. And I did it. It's really easy to do. You plug in your name, you plug in your address, and they already have the letter ready to go, and they automatically send it to your congressional representative and both your senators. And I got replies back from
me too.
Everybody really quick.
Yeah, rather quickly.
I think it was next day for my congressional representative, and I think it was another day. I think it was 2 days later I got it from Todd Young and Senator Braun.
And I think it goes back to what you said, that maybe it's just something that maybe they'll probably pick it back up in January. Maybe they.
I mean,
hopefully they do, because
it may yet get put on the tree
on the hold. Because I know that this they're working on the workforce development. Seems like workforce development is on, besides childcare, seems like it's a top priority, or at least for the state of Indiana.
It's primarily run by the states. It's funded by the feds and it's run by the state. And that's what WIOA is, right? I mean, that's what it's pointed at in every state.
Now, could the freeing of the states, I guess kind of going back to the, Trump's, his agenda, could freeing of the states impact WIOA?
Not really, because that's money, and Congress is the one that determines how much of that they raise and who gets it, right? So that's different than what President-elect Trump was referring to is he's going to curtail the federal agencies, and basically he wants the states to be left alone as much as possible.
Okay.
So that has to do with regulation, not
with funding.
Not
okay.
money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's not proposing cutting transportation bill or something.
And all of that. Okay. Well, I guess, I wasn't sure what that
and part of that restricting the government is going to come through the work that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are doing on Doge, because it's to me it's super clear what they intend to do. And I was actually talking to somebody in DC about this, and the person reflected back to me was he was saying, look, that's not going to go anywhere, because all these people have civil service protections, and the Biden administration passed all kinds of rules that make it almost impossible to fire people. And I said, yeah, I completely understand that, but I said, I don't think you understand how these two guys work. They're not going to fire people. They're going to eliminate jobs.
Yeah, that's
a different proposition.
Yeah, that's a different conversation for sure.
Yeah. I'm not firing you. This has nothing to do with performance.
It no longer exists. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, these are private sector guys. They don't mess around.
Wow.
You got to remember, Elon Musk walked into Twitter not even 2 or 3 days after he bought it, and fired, just eliminated 58% of the roles altogether.
Wow.
On first day.
So
like
yeah,
I said, Twitter didn't crash.
And that's right. So wow, I mean I think I don't even really know how to comprehend or how to really think about what possibly could be.
It's going to be interesting. We haven't
Yeah.
really seen anything like this.
This will be interesting for sure. For sure.
Like I said, the closest for me was I talked about in the last podcast, my experience moving to Washington, D.C. just as Reagan was getting started, and he wiped out 2 agencies, just completely eliminated them altogether.
Oh, okay. So then I have a question then, because was there an uproar of any, like, do you feel like there were probably vendors that could have been connected?
Well, if you were in Washington, D.C. and you were reading the Washington Post, it was the end of the Republic as we knew it. I mean, that's
okay. So then there was, okay.
How the people in the U.S. reacted after it was done was delight.
Okay.
Because one of the agencies he eliminated was the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, whose job it was to set gasoline and oil prices for the entire United States.
Okay.
And when he eliminated them and just moved it to the free market, gasoline prices collapsed.
Wow. Okay.
And then he turned around and eliminated the Civilian Aeronautic Board, who set the price of all airline tickets and determined how many gates an airport could have, and if an airport could expand gates and who got those gates. And they did all of that. And he ended that and said to the airports, yeah, you guys figure out if you want to expand your airport, and you figured out if you want no gates, and you negotiate with the airlines for those gates. We're not going to do anything from DC. You figure that out. And deregulated air travel altogether.
Okay.
Because the CAB also determined who could fly where. They told the airlines where they could fly. So
that is so interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So Reagan was like, told the airlines, you guys figure it out. We don't care. You want to fly to San Francisco? Well, make a deal with San Francisco's airport. Don't ask me anything. I don't care. And airline fares crashed. Southwest Airlines began flying all over the United States.
That is just really interesting that there was regulation like that. It was
all World War II era stuff.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
He just walked in and dynamited the whole thing. I mean, it was gone. So So I think, and trust me, I mean, I'm sure Musk and Ramaswamy have studied that. So we're going to see, but there are still going to be agencies, right? They're not going to, the way it's going to be talked about, it's going to be as if he is dismantling everything. And he'll, knowing Trump's style, he'll be comfortable with letting people think that for a while. But Department of Labor isn't going anywhere.
Okay.
Right?
So then,
Department of Defense is going nowhere. Right.
Okay.
Now,
what about like EEOC?
I'd be shaking in my boots if I were some of these other outfits.
Like EEOC?
If I were OSHA, I'd be worried.
Okay. OSHA. What about the EEOC?
I don't know about that one. That was an act of Congress.
Okay.
I don't know about that one.
So what do you mean by when you say that?
Department of Education, I'd be shaking in my boots on that one. EPA.
Well, yeah. But what did you mean by that? It was an act of Congress when you said that. What limitations does that impute on that?
Well, because that's so the Department of Education and the EPA were created with strokes of pen by President Carter and by President Nixon. Nixon did EPA, Carter did education.
Okay.
The Congress passed the Civil Rights Act and then turned around and passed the Equal Employment Opportunity Act, and embedded within the Equal Opportunity Employment Act, embedded in with that was the creation of the EEOC to act as the enforcement arm.
Okay.
So that's not an Article 3 agency.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You know what I mean when I say Article 3? Article 3.
No, I was going to just write it down.
Article
But you
3
can.
of the Constitution. So Article 3 of the Constitution So if it's an Article 3 appointment, which most all of these are, the report directly to the executive. Right. So the executive appoints the head of the EEOC. The executive, just like the NLRB. The NLRB isn't going anywhere. Right.
Okay.
Okay. Because that's within the National Labor Relations Act. So when you're talking about acts of Congress and creation of things like that, that's different than an Article 3 to the Constitution piece saying the president and the executive alone holds responsibility for these. So the things that now that it doesn't mean, don't think for a minute that the work that Musk and Ramaswamy are going to do are going to be restricted to Article 3. They're not. They're going to be restricted, but I'm answering your question about could Trump do what Reagan did? And my answer is yes, as long as it's an Article 3.
Okay, but it doesn't mean it's going to stop
Article
them.
3, you line up under the executive. So you're not legislative, you're executive, right?
Yes.
Because we lay out in the Constitution, right? We got the legislative with the two branches, House and the Senate, and then we got the executive, and then we got the courts. So those are the entities within the Constitution, right? And we have strict guidelines, so there's no encroachment. So the executive has no authority to encroach on the legislative. The legislative can encroach on the executive unless in case of impeachment, in which case the House brings the articles and impeaches and the Senate holds the trial. So that's about the only way that the legislative can intrude on the executive through the impeachment process.
So
short of that, they got no stroke.
So then the only ones that, the agencies that could be possibly on the chopping block, I know the Department of Education, and we've said OSHA.
I said EPA. OSHA is super vulnerable also to a SHRM challenge.
Yes, because it would be.
Yeah, so I don't like its odds in the long term period, quite frankly. In a post-SHRM world. Yeah, I see OSHA having a hard time surviving in its current iteration. Right.
Now, is it because there've been quite a few pushback, or is OSHA find itself in?
So OSHA is way out, much like the EPA and everybody else. So all the agencies. The way it works right now, and I talked about this when I was at the panel that IndySHRM had, right, on legal. The way that the Pregnant Worker Fairness Act, PWFA, what that bill says, and how the EEOC is going to enforce it is night and day. And remember I told you Senator Braun did not vote for that bill?
Yes.
Because he said, and he was right, that it doesn't matter. The language in this bill doesn't matter. It's what the EEOC says that matters. And so when you read the Pregnant Worker Fairness Act, clearly they are talking about that pertaining to workers who are actually actively pregnant. Okay. That is not how the EEOC defined pregnancy. They define pregnancy as any employee who is pregnant in the past, any worker who is pregnant now, any worker who was planning to be pregnant, and any worker that was trying to be pregnant. So that's how they define pregnant, which is basically gives coverage to just about every female worker into perpetuity.
Yes, it does.
So, and that's, you can't find that in the act. Nothing, if you look at that act, you could not possibly conclude that.
But that's how EEOC.
That's what Congress wanted.
But that's how the EEOC is interpreting. So the Chevron deference.
And that's how they're going to enforce it too.
And that's how they're going to enforce it. So the Chevron deference does not have a position here.
It absolutely does.
Okay.
I expect a Chevron. I absolutely expect a Chevron style suit on this, because they're going to take it to a court and say, okay, when you read this in a plain reading of it, if a worker is pregnant, does that mean to you they're pregnant now? If somebody walked up to you, Tracy, and said, I'm pregnant, would you believe that that's probably what they were?
Yeah, like I wouldn't.
Would they walk up to you and say, hey, listen, Tracy, I was pregnant once 20 years ago, and you'd go, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's covered,
Yeah, right.
Yes, through the EEOC interpretation.
So you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So that's why I'm saying, yes, I think how the EEOC does it.
Okay.
But that's having an agency's enforcement authority and its ability to enforce, its ability to, on its lonesome, imagine a piece of legislation however they wish. That's what Chevron was pointed at.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they're going to want, now this allows a judge to go, hey, listen, you weren't even close to what Congress's intent here. Any plain reading of this law makes it very clear it's restricted to this. Right?
Okay.
And so
yes,
that is different than what Musk and Ramaswamy are doing. They are not looking at that stuff. That's a matter for the courts.
Okay.
They're looking at literally the cost and the design. And one way to trim it would be, if you don't want them doing stuff like that, well, then don't give them enough of a budget to do it. That's
yes, and that's okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
I think people are really, I think the people in DC are really not seeing the total scope of how the change could occur. I think they're thinking about it narrowly in terms of you can't fire federal workers. And I'm saying there are multiple ways to skin that cat that doesn't involve going through a termination process.
Yeah, and that's right. And I think that you made it very clear when you said it's not necessarily about, we're firing you. We're just eliminating this whole department to begin with. So this job no longer exists. So we're not firing you. It doesn't exist
you go
anymore.
To Congress and you say, hey, I'm making a funding request of 1/3.
Wow.
Okay, hey, well, I just don't have the money for this job. Don't have the money for this. I mean, there are so many different ways to do it. It's not funny. And I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that reflected back from DC right now. I don't think they're wrapping their heads around it that way. But in fairness to most folks in DC, they're still in shock.
Oh, that Trump won? Oh, okay.
Still in shock. Yeah. But let's get off of that. I did want to talk here because half the show is still left here. So there have been a whole bunch of appointments.
Yes.
So as we talked about earlier, a ton of appointments, but the only ones that anybody could name right now would likely be Pete Hegseth for defense, Tulsi Gabbard for DNI, and RFK for HHS.
Yeah, and then when I pulled it up, I was shocked.
Anybody else, right? Nobody can name anybody else.
I was shocked how much of a cabinet he already has in the ones that versus the ones he needs.
No, keep in mind he doesn't have them yet,
or at least the ones that needs to be confirmed. Like he has the ones that doesn't need to be confirmed.
Yes, there's some that don't need to be confirmed.
Yes.
So, like if you're doing an undersecretary of state, you don't.
Okay.
But the Secretary of State has to go through it, but not the Undersecretary of Latin Affairs, right? That doesn't have to go through that. So now, as a general rule, most of these will be staffed out by whoever gets the nod. But I want to cover briefly here this particular duty. So why is it? So why can't Trump just pick the people he wants? Why does he have to go to Congress for any of this?
Okay, great question.
In the Constitution, the Article 3 appointments have to receive the advice and consent of the Senate. Okay, so the House has nothing to do with this.
Okay.
Nobody in the House is involved. This is purely in the Senate.
Okay, and why?
Because that's how they wrote the Constitution.
Okay.
Okay, so this is once again, remember I told you that they broke everything apart on purpose. So
yes.
The founders were terrified of concentrated power.
Yes.
And so they put all kinds of landmines all over the place to just make that really hard to do. And so this is one of them. And so the president has the right to pick whoever he or she wants, but the Senate has to confirm. Okay. So as a general rule and historically.
Okay. And that makes sense. Yes.
The presidents get 99% of what they want, because the general tack of most of the people in the Senate is, unless you're sending me somebody that's just so round the bend crazy, I can't take it. You know,
typically they would confirm
that, you're gonna get who you want, even if I don't like them, even if I don't think you chose well. It's your prerogative. You won the election. You know, you get to pick. And so unless I just can't see my way past this, you know, I'm not going to do it. So, so I therefore expect most of these people to go through. And that
what about Hegseth? Why I want to call him Hegseth? Hegseth. Now, what do you think about him? Because I did see an article. They said that it could be possibly DeSantis.
So, okay, that's old news.
Oh, that's old news. Okay.
So that's old news. So, I
think
10 days ago, 8 days ago, I would have told you that the Hegseth nomination was totally dead. Totally dead.
Okay.
He's going to have to get somebody else. And that's where the DeSantis kind of thing went up the flagpole.
Okay.
But remember, part of the reason that was happening is because Marco Rubio's going to be the Secretary of State. So that means that DeSantis is going to have to pick somebody to replace Rubio.
Okay.
So there's all kinds of stuff going on there too. And so that was part of the DeSantis thing being floated.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Part of that being floated. So, but that's, now I've swung the other way, and I think Hegseth gets done. And if Hegseth gets done, then I believe then everybody goes through.
Then everybody's going to, you said everybody's going to get confirmed after that?
Everybody goes. Just about everybody.
Okay.
So they don't need Democrat votes to get this done, but they kind of do, because they can't count on, there are at least 3 Republican senators that they can't count on at all to vote for a Trump appointee.
Okay.
And that's Murkowski from
Hawaii?
Alaska,
not Hawaii.
Murkowski, Alaska, Cornyn from Texas, and Mitch McConnell from Kentucky. Because all 3 of these hate Trump with the fury of 1,000 suns.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so they cannot be counted on at all.
Okay.
And if you lose one more vote, you don't have them. So that makes Olympia Snowe from Maine the one you got to have. Right?
Okay.
And the reason that I think it's Hegseth is going to go through was because Joni Ernst from Iowa made some noise that she wasn't really comfortable with Hegseth. Okay. Especially on the issue of women serving in combat, because Hegseth's opinion is that women do not belong in combat.
Okay.
Period. That's his point of view. Now, he doesn't have any problem with females in the military.
So what's the difference? Military, combat, what?
Well, there are lots of roles in military that never get near the battlefield.
Oh, that's okay. Combat. You're saying those are the ones that are actually out
out
there
of all the
fighting.
jobs
Okay.
in the
Yes.
military, there's probably
Yes.
only
Like secretary, cooks. There's
15,
other positions, roles.
20% actually are
Hmm.
trigger pullers.
Okay.
Right. So
Okay.
there's an awful lot that goes on in the military. And when you look at the military and where the females are who are in the military and serve, very, very few are in combat arms.
Okay. So then, okay. So then there's some, uh, reasonable or understandable reasons as to why, you know, I mean, because what would be his purpose? Well, that's interesting. Somebody who believes that a woman should.
Literally the physical ability to be capable on the battlefield. Right. And if you look at the roles that females are in right now that are in combat,
Mm-hmm.
they are overwhelmingly pilots.
Okay.
So there are female naval aviators,
Mm-hmm.
and there are female Air Force officers, and there are female Army officers who fly helicopters. So you see, there are females in combat roles, but they were overwhelmingly pilots.
Okay.
For a whole lot of real good reasons, quite frankly. Females have better than male fine motor skills, which come in really handy.
So you don't see Pete Hegseth causing trouble in that area and kind of causing some sort of exodus.
I think he's been pretty clear. He doesn't want him on the battlefield.
Infantry. Okay, but as a pilot, that's okay, even though
he cares.
Okay. Interesting though. Okay.
Well, here's what it comes down to be perfectly blunt. You have to be capable of carrying a wounded soldier plus their pack under fire out of combat. And that total weight is probably going to be in the neighborhood of 200 to 250 pounds.
Okay. So then really, yeah. So it probably would be better if he's, instead of saying, women shouldn't, he maybe, if you can't carry more than 200 pounds, then, as opposed to.
And that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
It's pretty much what it is. That's why you don't. Now, you are starting to see females in sniper roles.
Okay. Okay.
But again, distance, right? Do you see where this is going? I mean,
yeah.
You tend to see him.
I see what you're saying. Okay. So, okay. Well, okay. So, I mean, if it's going to be a go.
The whole hand-to-hand combat part, grenade distance kind of stuff where the casualties are high. Yeah.
I mean, I'll be interested to really see because
but he's very strong in that opinion. But my point is, we digress a little bit. I'm just trying to explain where the rub is.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I didn't really realize that.
Joni Ernst, who is a reserve military officer and has been deployed multiple times, right? So she's a senator from Iowa, and so she went public and made it pretty clear that she had a problem.
Okay.
With the Hegseth thing. And the Trump people went scorched earth on her and basically said more or less. Now I'm paraphrasing here, but they rattled her and basically said, look, if you feel that way, if you don't think you can vote, okay, fine. But you're going to get primaried. We're going to make sure that you get primaried, and you will lose that primary, which is 100% true.
I mean, yeah, because they have the
100%.
Yeah, they're going to have the resources to be able to do that for sure. There's probably somebody else who'd be willing to run against and say, I'll support. I'll be a loyalist.
Well, so here's the thing. I mean, let's face it. Politics ain't a beanbag, right? So, as Nancy Pelosi's fond of saying. So, that's pretty bare knuckled. That's pretty bare knuckled, right? But they're going to say, I want what I want. And is this where you want to spend political capital? Do you feel so strongly about this that you're willing to risk your entire political career to die on this hill? I mean, if that's what you want to do, go get it.
Yeah.
Go get it.
So now, I mean, she's pretty much in a bad position then now because
she then turned around and said she's open. Right. So that's her latest thing. So she said she's open. Now, that's not saying she'll vote.
Well, no. I mean, no, I'm
not saying she will. She may tell them, good luck. I'll take my chances. Right. There are a whole pile of Republicans up for election in 2 years, right? There are more Republicans up for election in the next cycle than Democrats. And they are mostly from states. And most of these people are establishment Republicans.
Okay.
And most of them, I think, are going to retire because I think most of them could not win their primary. Remember I told you we're in a populist curve?
Yes.
It's the same thing for the establishment Democrats. It's the very same thing for them. It's just they're under the same pressure from the AOC branch of their party, right? And same thing's going to happen to them. The very same thing.
No, it totally makes sense. I mean, there's a shift. There's a definite shift for sure.
It's not just the United States; it's global.
Yeah. There's a shift, and people are just like, okay, we want something different.
Yeah,
even within the same party, they want to see something different.
Government in France fell. Government in Germany is going to fall. Government in Britain is going to fall. I mean, government in Netherlands is going to fall. I mean, you just see this coming like a freight train. Right?
So then how does all of this, really come together to impact HR? I guess because
it remains to be seen. Okay. So it remains to be seen. This is my point. If Hegseth goes through, I think everybody goes through. Okay. So let's talk about the ones that matter to us.
Yes.
The ones who have the greatest influence on us are the Department of Labor, the EEOC, and the NLRB.
Okay.
National Labor Relations Board. So far, he has only made one appointment in that arena, and that is Lori Chavez DeRaymer.
That's right. Yeah.
Out of Oregon.
Okay.
So DeRaymer took a lot of heat in the last Congress. So she lost her seat to a Democrat in the election.
And I read that, and then he appointed her.
She comes from a very, it is a probably D+1 district.
What does that mean? D+1 district?
Meaning that the Democrat registration in the district is 1% higher than the Republican registration.
Okay.
Right? So which means it's a potentially winnable seat.
Okay.
But you are going to have to either D's are not going to show up, or you're going to flip some of them to vote for you.
Okay.
Right? Because when you're the other party, if the registrations are greater than your team, then you're either going to have to hope they don't show up, or you're going to have to flip them to you.
Yeah. Yes.
So she won she won her general, right? For this
or her primary
Congress, for this current Congress, and then lost re-election. So she's currently the representative, but she will leave office.
Okay. So it flipped back. It flipped back. Okay.
Flipped back. So she was available. So she was not popular with a lot of the people in her caucus because she was one of only four or five Republicans in the House who voted for the PRO Act.
The PRO Act.
So the PRO Act was a piece of legislation that would loosen. It would curtail rights and privileges during an election for a union that the employer currently holds. So, for instance, it would really the PRO Act compressed the election cycle. Now, the PRO Act didn't pass, so the NLRB just made rules just as if it had.
Interesting.
Don't get me started. But anyway, so She did that. Now,
Okay.
the reason that she did that is because she comes from a D+1 district, right? And there's a lot of organized labor in her district, and she was trying to placate them, right? She's
protecting the right to organize. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the D's don't trust her. I mean, sorry, the R's don't trust her because of that, right?
And okay.
The D's don't trust her because she's a Republican.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So,
and then Trump got, okay. So then how does that work?
Well, here's what I think happened.
Okay.
So I don't have any particular insight.
Okay.
I have no communication with the Trump transition team, and I have no particular insight into their thinking. So this part is
conjecture,
pure speculation.
Okay.
Pure speculation. Here's what I think happened. In this last election, President Trump won labor. Okay. So he did not get the union endorsements other than he got the firefighters endorsement, and he got the Border Patrol union endorsement, but he got no other union endorsements. So all the union endorsements and all the union money went to the Harris campaign. Okay.
Okay.
What Trump won was the rank and file votes. So
the actual members of those those groups.
So the leaders of the union endorsed Harris and gave her their money.
But the people,
the union members, voted for Trump.
Okay.
Now, it's not all of them. I don't mean them, but he
But I know what you're saying. Like, it wasn't like
he won a majority. He won a majority of them. He won the working class. That was everything that happened in this election.
That's right.
For the foreseeable future, the Republican Party owns the workforce. They are firmly in the Republican camp now. Now, the Republicans could drive them out, but we've now had.
That's right.
This is now. That doesn't mean the union leadership won't continue to endorse Democrats and won't continue to give them their money. But as far as the votes go, the Republicans have them now.
Yeah,
this is pretty much cemented.
Yeah,
so
shifted.
At least for the next couple of cycles, right?
Yeah, it is interesting how that really shifted. And
what I perceive is going on here is that Trump recognizes that he got those votes. And so he's trying to make it an appointment of a person who, although Republican, was open to labor's concerns. And right away, when he made this announcement, the Teamsters came out and said, good with us.
Okay.
And the American Federation of Teachers came out and said,
good with us. Okay. Because that was one of the people I was looking at that was the labor. Okay. So then, Lori, so when you say labor, is that over the DOL, however?
So that's the DOL. And so now
that's it.
People are going, oh my gosh, what is she going to mean? What is this going to mean? Is she going to turn around and just be, some version of Democrat light, in this role? Okay. So first of all, I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know. But I do know this. I don't think Trump is appointing a single person who he does not believe is going to do anything much other than what he expects. Now, he's not going to tell him how to do the job because that isn't how he operates, right? He's the CEO. CEOs don't do that. You know what I want to get accomplished. You figure it out.
Yeah.
And you get that done quick, correctly, and deliver the results that I want, or you're fired. Right?
And what could be some of his labor agendas or initiatives? Okay.
I have no clue. Obviously, she's not going to walk in and revive the salary increase. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, because that's. So no one really needs to be concerned with that.
She's not.
And what about the BOI? Like, is that something that
What?
the what is it? The Treasury, where small businesses, LLCs, had to file with the Department of Treasury.
Oh, so you're talking about that? Yeah, that's bureaucratic as the day is long. No, she wouldn't have anything to do with that. That was
Okay.
Treasury.
Okay.
That was Treasury. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Department of Treasury. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So
and
then,
that one was weird. I had to file that myself because I'm a small business person, right?
but I heard that that it was blocked, and so we no longer have to do that.
I hope they did. I mean, it was intrusive as the day is long.
I feel like it is intrusive as well. Yeah.
I had that not been a requirement, I wouldn't have done it. I didn't see how any of the information I personally provided about my business was any business of the U.S. Treasury. I didn't understand that, or what they were going to do with that information. I mean, with what they were trying to do, supposedly it's about controlling fraud and stuff.
Yeah, but it does seem very intrusive. I will agree.
I was like, I don't see how this is going to help you with that.
Yeah, I just feel like we're doing is just giving them more information for people to now hack into. Now we're just giving it to them in a go.
I was like, I'm giving you permission to dig into my business, and it's none of your business. That's how I felt. But anyway, so
interesting. Okay.
But the bottom line is we've got DeRaymer. So
okay.
I don't think that she was going to run into any trouble. I really don't. But I'm really watching the Hegseth thing, because if he goes through, I think they all do. I don't think there's going to be a fight on Gabbard. There's not going to be a fight on RFK. I don't know if you saw that it was I think it was the New York Times today. I think did a story that 21, I think it was 21, I may have the number wrong. 21 former Nobel laureates signed a letter that said that, they don't want RFK to be the head of HHS.
Oh, wow. No. So these are because these are people, the labels that you shared, are these like, it's supposed to show like, people of power or influence?
Yeah, well, what they're trying to do is influence the senators on the vote, very obviously, right? Very obviously.
Now,
but
RFK,
the response to that was from the Trump side, it was super quick.
What did they say?
Yeah, kind of like the 65 intelligence officers who said that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian intelligence.
Oh, wow. So, yeah. I mean, I
mean, they were
because I don't think Trump cares. If anything, I think it feeds, what he wants to do even much more so if he hears that people don't like, his choices.
We have to understand the times we're in. And I think we as HR professionals have to be highly cognizant of this, and especially when it comes to advocacy. Right? So what got us here, we have to remember, right? Remember what I told you about, we move in big sweeps of things, right? So there is and this has been going on for all the history of mankind. And you could go all the way back and look at ancient Rome and see that curve.
I mean, right? It honestly has been. So
the establishment takes over. The establishment delivers results. The establishment becomes corrupt. The establishment fails the people. The populists come in, burn it to the ground, build something new, and become the new establishment. Right. So we are in that
transitional
burn it down phase.
Yes.
Okay? So we're in the burn it down phase.
I mean,
so when you're in the burn it down phase, what you have to understand, always to be effective in advocacy, you have to understand where you are at this place and time. Okay, at this place and time. And for a lot of the voting population, a majority of it, because we just had an election, so a majority of it They don't trust the institutions. And when you look back at it, go all the way back to 2008, right?
Mm-hmm.
The banks failed them. That institution shot. There's nobody that believes in big banks. Nobody.
I mean,
Did anybody trust a big bank to do anything remotely in the interest of the people?
yeah, there's just too much.
Whether that's fair or not is irrelevant, right? I asked the question.
No, honestly, yeah, it's just the facts of what has happened.
Them, and the answer is no.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't trust government agencies. They don't trust universities. They don't. So if my point is, if you think in this environment that you are going to persuade somebody who's looking over their shoulder or who was just elected, like Bernie Moreno out of Ohio, do you think you're going to persuade Bernie Moreno of Ohio by saying, hey, 21 Nobel laureates think this is a bad idea? And he was like, in that case, it sounds like a pretty good idea to me.
I love that you're saying that, Chris. Yeah, because that's exactly it. It's going to take a different mindset today to really navigate this.
These folks are discredited as far as these other folks are considered. Now, whether that's fair or right or any of this other stuff, that's not what I'm talking about. I don't mean that. It's the way to think about it is like this, and it's grossly unfair, but it's true.
Okay, let's hear it.
Once your credibility is shot, you're done. And whether it's unfair or not, and you could be proved to be right later, and lots of people have been, right? Anybody who is in science reveres Leonardo da Vinci. And Da Vinci's inventions were marvelous. He got so many things right in terms of a big picture. The whole thing with people flying with their arms, no. But the idea that wings properly designed could carry something heavier than the air itself, he believed that could work. Now, he lacked the technology to actually make it work. He was 100% correct on the big stuff. He died virtually impoverished and thought to be an absolute nut job.
Yeah, and that's what's sad when you hear those stories. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Is now the whole reason he was able to get anything done and do the stuff he did was because fabulously wealthy merchants in Italy thought he was pretty good to have the crazy guy around to do just crazy stuff. And, he seems to come up with outlandish stuff and I got money to burn. So what the hell? That's only did that because of their patronage. Much the same thing happens today with the patronage of people in Silicon Valley, right? So, but my point is, once your credibility is shot, you're done, whether it's fair or not. And fortunately for Da Vinci, he was rehabilitated hundreds of years after his death. Would have been good to have in real time, but
oh gosh, yes.
But you see what I'm saying? This is my whole point. And so it doesn't matter if you're right. When you are at a season or a space in time where people just see it's not so much you personally, it's what you represent.
Yes.
Discredited.
Yes. Honestly, yes.
When everybody was talking about climate change and stuff like that, and that has nothing to do with IHR, but I'm just going to illustrate this. If you say that the planet is going to burn to a cinder within 20 years, if it hasn't, you're in trouble. If the polar bears don't go extinct, you're in trouble. If snow is still on Mount Kilimanjaro, you're in trouble. If it snows again in England and France, you're in trouble. You see what I mean? So it doesn't matter. But if you do that long enough, people are going to stop listening. And maybe you're right about something else, but it's too late.
It's too late. Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So you are not going to hear me. So when you and I start working the Hill,
yes,
you and I are not going to say anything approaching experts say. You're
That's
never
right.
going to hear those words come out of my mouth.
And I love that you just said that, because that's what I was just going to say, that now when you hear people say like, oh, I've been doing this for like 30, 40 years, it's just like, okay, then move out of the way now. Like where before it was respected and honored.
Not going to hear
Today it's like, okay, move out of the way.
No. What we're going to be talking about is the stuff that we'll believe will work. And
Yes.
we're going to talk about it in the terms of positioning for success, not telling the states what to do, putting tools in their toolbox. You're going to hear me say that a lot.
Yes.
We're not bossing.
I started saying it, Chris.
It's a tool in the toolbox. If you don't want to use the tool, we're not telling you to.
Yep. That's right. That's right.
So it's, if you are going to have influence and if you're going to be able to be an effective advocate, you have to know the times you're in. You have to know the zeitgeist that is happening. And this may sound far afield of what I'm talking about. What does this have to do with HR? It has everything to do with advocacy.
Yes.
Advocacy. We have to be effective. If we want our stuff done, we have to be effective as advocates. And if we're going to be effective as advocates, there's a whole pile of stuff we have to know.
That's right.
About the environment in which we're operating in.
Because we say the word advocacy, but really there is this assumption that we all know that really before advocacy comes education. That's I mean, you know, it's in part of that word.
The words you use are critical, right?
Yes.
I mentioned this in last podcast. When I go to the Hill and I'm talking about legislation on the Hill, what I emphasize and the words and the terms I use when I'm in an office and I'm speaking to an LA from a Democrat office, that is different terminology. And different things that I will emphasize about the bill than I will when I'm in a Republican office. But both things are true.
Yes.
Both things are true. It's the perspective.
Yes.
They're bringing to the table. And the reason you have to do that is because you have to have votes. This is why, what SHRM says all the time, right? Policy, not politics.
That's right.
I don't wear a jersey. I'm there in that Democrat office because I want that vote. I'm there in that Republican office because I want that vote. I'm not lying, and I can't ever lie. Remember what I said about credibility? That's one thing you can't ever do when you're talking to a legislator. You can't ever lie. You can say, I don't know. You can say, I'm not sure. Just don't. You can't, because if your credibility is shot, then they aren't listening.
And that's it.
You're done. You're done.
Wow. I don't know. Now it's, it's 5:03, Chris. But this was really great. But I just really loved how you ended that. And I just hope that, you know, for anyone listening, that, you know, really learning and understanding what's really going on in the political landscape or in the legislative landscape is going to be very key in helping you find your voice.
You have to have context.
Yes. You have to have the right context so that you're not coming up there and saying, oh, well, I represent this group. And then they just look at you and just laugh you off, you know, out of the room.
Well, they don't laugh us off.
They won't laugh you out the room. Okay.
Sure of that. Yeah. But we're going to have to think through, you know, the lexicon we use, the terms we use, the words we use. You know, I'm going to be putting a lot of thought in that, and we'll have a better fix on this when you and I go to the Hill in March.
Yes.
We'll know.
Yes.
And
it's going to be,
hopefully by the time we have our podcast next month, there should be appointments, right? So we should know by then. We should know who's running the EEOC, who's running the NLRB.
Okay.
And then we'll do it. So yeah, let's just call this a wrap now. And thanks.
Definitely.
Again. It's always a lot of fun. So
always a lot of fun. I mean, honestly, I learn. I always feel like I walk away just feeling so much more smarter. Honestly, every time we have our podcast, Chris. So just thank you so much, and everybody have a beautiful day. And until next month, and happy holidays. Bye.